He talks a good game. He talks a good game. On the outside, he talks a good game.
Hello, welcome to On Me Head, Son. Hope you're all well. So, Sunday roast for you. Bit of a West Ham Sunday roast for you. Coming out live Sunday, the day after West Ham go up to Burnley. And guess what? We get a win. Hey, we're all happy, right? We're all happy with that result. Fantastic. What we needed. We just need a win, right? We just need a win. By hook or by crook. But actually, it's more than that. We actually did really, really well. And I thought, fantastic. Fantastic first half. We eased off the second half. They came at us. But we still had our options in the second half. I think, Nuno went for a more defensive setup again in the second half, but not totally, didn't totally revert back. But overall, I thought we did really, really well. I really liked, of course, you've got to speak about Somerville's goal. Fernandez pass to him, fantastic. A beautiful, just little dink over the chip over the keeper. I didn't think he was going to get to it, in all fairness. And that Juve cross into Tati, a wonderful. That's 2 goals Tati's got for us now, both with his head. He's a head and goal scorer. That's what he is. He's just a header. He just heads the ball. Beautiful header, fantastic. First in the Premier League for him. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I thought overall played really well. I thought defensively we were strong. Look. Before the game, I was wondering why Hermansen was starting, and he did make me feel a bit uncomfortable in the first half. I got to say, yeah, he gathered the ball a couple of times, but a couple of times I thought he was hesitating. I just didn't think he was that sure, or he didn't look assured, I've got to say. But at the same time, in the second half especially, he made a couple of saved it, made a couple of saves here and there, or shot stopped at close range. So he did all right. I still think Areola should have been in there and is the better keeper. We'll see if there's a problem between Areola and Nuno in the Man United game on Tuesday. Tuesday. We'll see if there's a problem because he's fit, so he should have played. But then again, Nuno might have thought this is Burnley. Let's put Hermansen in there, give him some time, give him some minutes. Who knows, just in case there's an injury for Areola. I can see it, but, I didn't think it was necessary. But then again, if you've got a winning combination, you stick with that winning combination, right? But there we go. Back 4. I thought it did really, really well. Wan-Bissaka again, I thought did a decent job. He was getting tackles in. He was trying to, link up and get forward with play. So I didn't think his end product in the final third or getting towards the final third or crossing the halfway line, I should say, was that great. But in terms of defensive stuff, responsibilities, I thought he's doing all right. Mavropanos and Dizazi, I thought were great. I thought they were great. Yeah, look, Mavropanos made a couple of errors here and there. But overall, this getting the feet in. Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, and Dizazi were getting their bodies on the line, or putting their bodies on the line, getting those last-minute tackles in. And it was great. It was great to see. Sometimes desperate defending, yeah, all the way for the first, especially in the second half as well. But they were there. They were doing defensive jobs. Juve, I thought, had okay defensively. It was okay defensively. He didn't do a great deal, apart from a couple of times. This is starting lineup I'm talking about. But thereafter, and then Scholes came on. He did all right, right at the end there. But Somerville, fantastic. I thought Bowen had another, decent game as well. I thought when he charged through on the keeper and then he crossed the ball and it was just too high and too heavy, too fast for Somerville. I thought if he could just put it across, closer to the deck and it was, it was in terms of the margin of error, it was an error, but you would have thought if he'd just done it slightly slower, slightly lower, Somerville, I think, would have got there. But look, it is, coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. That's the way I look at these things. But it's fantastic overall, them two. Tati and Wilson, I thought, were great up front. Wilson was running around, he's making a nuisance of himself. He's making his presence known. And Tati the same. I thought they were great. And in midfield, obviously, Souček and Fernandez. And because everybody else gets a real good mention, I'm sure everybody's going to be talking about all these players. Somerville, great, and Tati, fantastic, and all this sort of stuff. I'm going to reserve this short video, short Sunday roast, honestly, for Fernandez and Souček, especially in the first half, because I thought what they were doing was just brilliant. And if you go and watch the game, and I was noticing this straight away, because what was happening, let's just say, when Fernandez you'd have two central defenders who would split. You'd have Wan-Bissaka and Juve pushing on, so that basically stretched the back four into like a horseshoe, right? If you will. So what happened was that Fernandez, on multiple occasions, would drop back in between the two central defenders and then work his way through again. What happened, he was doing that every time Souček was pushing forward a little bit. Now, exactly the same happened in terms of whenever Fernandez went forward, Souček would drop back a little bit as well. So they did this kind of forward and backward motion each time in terms of protecting the back four. Fernandez was doing it a lot, but he was carrying the ball forward. Souček was coming back and just doing defensive responsibilities. And it's by no surprise that on many occasions he was in the box, getting his head on the ball or getting his leg to a ball as well, or his foot to a ball as well. So I thought those two together were absolutely brilliant. What does this mean for us? Well, we're 3 points closer to Nottingham Forest. But on Tuesday night, or Wednesday, it could be back to 6 points. Forest are playing Wolves, we're playing Man United. They just got their win against Spurs again. They're, flying high, 4 wins out of 4 under Carrick. So we've got to come and show it. Now, the question here is against Burnley and obviously against Chelsea. Great first half. Not as great this time, but, still great in terms of scoring goals, going forward with purpose. Second half, easing off and letting the team come onto us. Then, quite quickly, taking off Wilson, 50, 60 minutes, whatever it was. Bringing on Potts. What I will say this about Potts, I want to be. I don't want to be negative towards the lad, but all I would say is this: it's great, it's fantastic that he's got that passion, he's got that fight that he wants to get stuck in. The only thing I can see with Potts right now that Nuno's got to manage, in terms of, is he's getting his tackles in, but he's not always getting the ball. And he's giving away fouls. He's getting the man as opposed to getting the ball. Now, some of you might think that's great. And I do. I love that aggression. I love that kind of feeling. But at some point, he's going to have to be careful about the number of fouls and free kicks he's giving away, and potentially picking up yellow cards, and then obviously cumulative yellow cards, or 2 yellow cards in a game, or a straight red. I'm not saying he's going to go that way, but he's got to be very careful in terms of. And you could see he went in for a tackle once. He was getting, it went against him. He was furious. He hated that he, got the decision against him. But at the same time, whilst you can always look at the ref. Of course we can, but at the same time, you've got to look at yourself. And most of those tackles he was making were mistimed. He was getting the man. And, he's just got to be very careful of that. But again, his inclusion, I would always have him there. But I thought, Souček played really well. And I think and this is exactly what I was saying before, in terms of if you're going to go for a defensive setup, at least, take a striker off and put Potts or whomever in midfield to bolster up the midfield to hold everybody away from our defence. Having Souček there allows Souček to go forward, although he didn't, to go forward and be a menace himself. Or Fernandes, in this case, to go forward as well. They were all a lot quieter in the second half. They all, got down to their defensive responsibilities a lot more in the second half. But, overall, I thought they, look, the what's the word? The result was all important, right? At the end of the day, we did fantastic. 3 points more, in good form, looking really good now. But again, it's unfortunately we're going to have this to the end of the season. We're going to win a game and then other results are going to go against us and we might lose a game and then, other teams might start winning and pulling away from us. So I think we're going to be constantly doing this, be at it for a while yet, unless everything goes in our favour and we win every single game and then Forest and Leeds and Palace and Spurs, they lose all their games and then, we just suddenly, jump over them, as it were. I mean, I can't see that happening, but there we go. I mean, there's always a hope that could happen, of course. But there we go. Listen, it was just a fantastic. It was a fantastic time. Commiserations to Burnley. They were pretty flat the first half, I thought. We just had it the better of them. Especially going forward, we were just cutting through them, our positioning was better, our build-up play was better. We were changing it up. We had, a bit of slow build-up, bit of fast build-up. There's a variety of passes. It was working well overall. This is what I've always called for, variety in the way we play. Second half, again, we shut it down a little bit. We just got to be so careful about shutting this down in the second half. We come up against better teams, they're going to punish us, just as Chelsea did last week. We got to keep on going for those other goals. Whilst I think we were trying, the main focus wasn't on a defence, an attacking intent. It was more of a defensive responsibility. We did well. We rode our luck a little bit, no doubt. Burnley definitely came at us for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that, whatever it was. But as I said, beforehand, they would be a threat, and a couple of times they were a threat, and I thought it would be a little bit closer than it actually was, but it wasn't that we battered them or anything like that. It was a relatively close game in the second half, definitely, and the scoreline bore that out as well. They could have had a couple of goals if they had, if luck had gone their way a little bit and everything like that. We could have had a couple more, I suppose, if the timing of the pass had been quite right, or whatever. So it was a relatively close game, but they are not lacking intent. They are not lacking necessarily desire. They're lacking a lot of motivation now, and they're lacking a lot of quality. That's what they're lacking, and that's the reason why. And that's why we're able to. We did to them what we did to them, really. So it's a combination. Look, and again, you can only play who's in front of you. You can only play the team who presents himself before you, and they didn't present very well yesterday, and we did, and that's it. And look, 3 points are ours, and away we go. That's the way we should be looking at this, and that's the way I definitely look at it. We won, fantastic. 3 points in the bag, 3 points closer to Forest. Let's just hope Forest and the like, they keep on losing, they keep on dropping points. On Wednesday night, I think when Forest play Wolves, I'm going to be cheering on Wolves, hoping that they can beat Forest. I really hope they can beat them. I hope that Palace, Leeds, Spurs, I hope they all lose. Let's just have a quick look here. I think Leeds are away at Chelsea, aren't they? Yeah, Leeds are away at Chelsea on Tuesday. Everton at home to Bournemouth, Spurs at home to Newcastle, and we're at home to Man United, of course, on Wednesday. Villa at home to Brighton, Palace at home to Burnley, Man City at home to Fulham, Forest at home to Wolves, and Sunderland at home to Liverpool. I think Thursday, Brentford, who got their win against Newcastle on night 3-2. They're at home to Arsenal, Brentford, Arsenal. But look, some interesting games there. But look, we've got to hope that, for our sake, we've got to hope that Chelsea beat Leeds. Got to hope that Everton beat Bournemouth to keep them, within touching distance. That Newcastle beat Spurs to keep them down. We beat Man United. Palace, Burnley beat Crystal Palace. You want to keep those down there. It's not going to happen. I think Palace is going to be in there. Man City beat Fulham. Wolves beat Forest. So on and so on, right? That's what we've got to hope for. I mean, a lot has got to go in our favour for us to be able to, in the next game, get closer to those teams, right? We've got to hope in the next 3 or 4 games that we can get enough points to get out of the bottom 3. All I could say, if we do this, we've. What can I say? I'd be very surprised. But, we can't ignore the fact, and I can't ignore the fact that we're winning and we're playing decent football, especially in the first half. So if we can keep that going, yeah, why not? Robin Irons, hello. For some reason, I can't put the chat up for some reason. I don't know why. My system's gone on the blink again. I'm impressed with the new centre half. Solid, mobile, and even had a shot. Our new Dawson, maybe. Thank you for that. Robin Irons, 541, that was. I thought he was actually really good. I thought Dizazi was really good as well. It'd be good to see him the next couple of games, see how he does. And Mavropanos as a team, as a back four, how we defend against better teams. I think it's struggling. I think we're still struggling. We're still susceptible to crosses. That's the problem here. We're still susceptible to crosses. We're still susceptible to teams that put pressure on us and put pressure on us quickly. We've got to be able to put pressure on other teams to stop them coming onto us as well. Newcastle are wobbling. We beat Man U, and they draw at Spuds. It brings them into our grasp 100%. And this is what I keep on saying. We've got to hope that those teams above us keep on losing and dropping points, and we win, and it gets closer and closer, right? Hammer time 275. Hello. If we could sneak a win on Tuesday, it would be massive. It would be absolutely insane if we can get that win. If we can get that win, and again, a draw doesn't help us. We need a win. I know this is crazy, right? A draw against Man United, but look, it's at home. We need to get a win. We need the points. Desperation stakes, right? We need to be that team who are dangerous to play against because we absolutely need these points. We can't go into this half-heartedly. We can't go into this thinking, well, if we win, we don't. We know. No, we've got to go in there with the attitude saying we have to win. But we've got to throw everything at them, throw the whole kitchen sink at them, and see what happens, right? And we've got to be strong against them because they're playing decent football under Carrick. They're playing on the front foot. They're playing with confidence, and they're going right to the very last whistle. It's going to be tough for us, definitely. But I think again, as you say, we need those points, and if we can get those points, we get that win. It just makes it better and better. The season will look better and better. This is where we start to look at building momentum and saying this is realistically how we can get it. We need to win these games. If we get these points and we get these wins, then it will look a lot better a lot sooner. However, if we lose against Man United, we're in the same position again, because you would imagine that Forest are going to beat Wolves. But if they, who knows? I mean, this is not a disservice to Wolves, but actually Wolves could put up more of a fight and they could actually beat Forest. Who knows? Especially the way Forest are playing. Who knows? So again, it's going to be up and down, topsy-turvy for the next few weeks until we get some clear daylight, or We need to come out better in the second half. Not sure what Nuno says at halftime. Yeah, again, this is a problem. There's a problem I've already talked about here about coming out in the second half and changing our makeup, and our tactics, and going for a more defensive setup, and not changing like for like, and okay. Granted, in all fairness to Nuno, he did bring Pablo on afterwards as well, but he brought him on for Tati, didn't he? And it's just. He took Wilson off. Yeah, okay, granted, wasn't have the greatest game either, but he was up there, but he brought on Potts. So, you definitely changed the defensive into a defensive setup. Pablo was all right. I've been a bit of a critic of Pablo. I think there was one moment where he was almost like clear on goal. Well, not clear on goal. Then he took a touch, instead of going towards the goal, the touch took him away from goal a little bit, and then he got tangled with the players. Yeah, okay, he's able to pass it on to, I can't remember who he passed it to. So he retained possession, but at the same time, I think he's not the quickest. And he got caught really quickly, and he caught in terms of the ball stuck under his feet a little bit. I think another player with better quality would have taken that ball and taken it forward. And yeah, he might have got tackled by a defender or whatever, but it would have been more direct towards the goal. So, I don't think we're looking at a great deal of quality, although we all say this. I think we're looking at a trier, somebody who's trying, somebody who can grow. But again, Tati is scoring goals, right? Scored one in the cup against QPR. He scored now one in the Premier League. He's come close a few times with efforts, whereas Pablo hasn't done that. He hasn't shown that. He might be, okay in holding up the ball or being a presence and fumbling his way around in that final third, but he hasn't actually been a goal threat. So that's where we kind of need to look at that in the future as well. But listen, all I can say, this is a Sunday roast. It is not a roast of West Ham. It's not a roast in the sense of taking the piss or anything. I thought we did really, really well. This is just something to digest, an aperitif, if you will, an aperitif before you'll tuck into your proper Sunday roast, wherever that is. So, Hammer time 275. Is it any coincidence? I should say coincidence. We look better without Paqueta. Well, we were saying that weeks ago. I don't think this is all down to Paqueta. I think this is also down to, it kind of coincided with Paqueta not being in the team, and also having his issues as well, falling out of favour, wanting to go back. But also getting the two new Tati and Pablo up front, changing our shape 4-4-2-ish-esque, as it were. And I think it was coincidental in that regard. But I'm not. It'll be hard to say whether we would be better with Paqueta in the side, but I'm not sure where he would fit in the way we're playing right now. That's the thing. But let's just say if you're talking about Tati and Wilson, I think those are your top two. But if you had to take Wilson out or Tati out ahead of Pablo, I would put Paqueta in that number 10 role behind a Tati, or a number 10 role behind Wilson, if you know what I mean. Obviously, you got to look at levels here, and the levels is, if he's on form, if he's on, whatever. But obviously that's gone now, isn't it? Regardless, he's gone. It doesn't make any difference. We're playing better. We're playing well. We're getting the results. That's all that matters. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. And and right now, first half performances are encouraging, aren't they? They're definitely encouraging. Second half performances, we've still got a lot of work to do. Second half performances are the ones that can really bite us in the arse. Let's just see. Anyway, listen, go and enjoy your Sundays. Really appreciate you joining the chat. I'll try and get these chats to show up on here. I don't know why, but there we go. Gotta go. Before I go, can we judge Nuno more, as he has now some of his own signings in the side? Well, I think we've always said that we've got to wait until January until he gets his own players in. But are they his players? This is the thing. Are they his actual choices? Yeah, really are they his choices? Traore, he's got his Traore. Traore, what did he do? He hasn't done anything, right? Never expected him to either. But I think we judge Nuno, yes, on performances, yes, on results. Of course you do, but you can't ignore what's already happened. And also, you've got to look at the tactics again about going defensive in the second half. He went defensive really early in the second half again. And again, he was looking at how Burnley were coming at us with a lot of energy, getting quite a bit of success. And he was getting a bit nervy for about 10, 15 minutes. So I can see why he did it. But what I would have liked him to have done is to say, okay, instead of taking off Wilson and putting on Potts at that point, I would have liked him to say, take off Wilson, put on Pablo at that point and say, right, come on, push on and take the pressure off us by putting the pressure on Burnley again. So this is a makeup of Nuno to go defensive, and I think he goes defensive too early. Even though when we're winning, he goes defensive too early, but there we go. Anyway, listen, enough chat from me. Go and enjoy your Sundays. Fantastic stuff. We're winning again. Back in on Tuesday. All I can say is up the hammers, and I'll catch you again. Bye now.